We would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations as the traditional owners of the land on which the university stands. We respectfully recognise elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to Newsline.
Brought to you live from the Media Precinct at RMIT Melbourne.
Welcome to RMIT's final evening of Newsline for the week from our Swanston Street studio. We hope you're keeping warm.
Before we kick off, we want to say a big thank you to our teaching team, Tito, Bernadette, Janik and Kate.
On behalf of all the journalists, we'd like to say thank you to the huge tech team who have carried us through the week.
Let's check out today's headlines.
At 9:30 this morning, the new federal cabinet was sworn in by Governor-General David Hurley with a record number of women on the front bench. For the first time in history, 38% of the chamber in the new parliament will be female, after 58 women were elected into the lower house, including 19 first-term MPs.
The female members of the new front bench include Claire O'Neill, who takes the Home Affairs Ministry after portfolio favourite Christina Keneally was defeated by independent Di Lee, Linda Burney as Indigenous Australians Minister, and Tanya Plibersek, who's shifting into the Environment and Water portfolio.
For the guys, Mark Dreyfus has been returned to the Attorney General portfolio after a near 10-year hiatus, and Chris Bowen is tasked with implementing Labor's 2030 target of 43% carbon emissions reduction. In breaking news, South Australian police say they have uncovered a murder scene of 64-year-old Peter Hellier, whose body was found on Monday in South Australia's Venus Bay. They allege that the 43-year-old Adam Troy Bennett murdered his companion elsewhere on Sunday and then called an ambulance for him the next day. Mr. Bennett has been a missing person since 2020. He is currently in police custody. This story is still unfolding.
Now, it's the first day of winter and Melburnians certainly knew about it this morning. While the mercury read about 5 or 6 degrees and commuters shivered their way down Flinders Street, the Bureau of Meteorology reckon it was actually much colder for those folks out in the weather. Using the formula you should hopefully see below me, the Bureau uses wind speed and humidity to land on the feels like temperature. This morning that was around 1 degree. Melburnians can expect a cold snap over the coming days, and Rayan will have all the details later in the broadcast.
New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has visited US President Joe Biden in the Oval Office overnight. The leaders met to discuss China's influence in the Pacific, but the latest mass shooting in Texas became a topic of conversation.
I've been to more mass shooting aftermath than I think any president in American history, unfortunately. And it's just so much of it is preventable. And the devastation is amazing.
$1 million reward is available for any information on the 2007 fatal assault of a man in Melbourne CBD. Victoria Police's homicide squad made the announcement almost 15 years to the day after Shannon McCormick was fatally injured in a South Bank altercation. Anyone with information is urged to contact Crime Stoppers.
From bushfires to floods to storms, national disasters are becoming a more common and terrifying reality for many Australians. Many wonder if we do enough to look after these victims. A warning, this story contains a retelling of the Black Saturday bushfires and could be triggering for some viewers. Georgina Carroll investigates.
February 7th, 2009 saw Victoria experience one of its worst natural disasters to date, the Black Saturday bushfires. Steeles Creek, a town 45 kilometres from Melbourne, was one of the many places seriously affected. 10 people were killed, and most properties were severely damaged, if not completely destroyed. Resident Kerry Williams and her family were having a normal hot summer's day by the pool before they realised something was seriously wrong.
It was just getting a bit weird. It was so incredibly hot and no wind, like dead still.
Kerry and her family had to flee, leaving almost everything they owned. In a freak act of miscommunication, the Williams family were accidentally told that their house had survived, when that couldn't have been further from the truth.
She rang me and just went, "Oh my God, Kerry, I'm so sorry, there's nothing there." I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, I've just received a phone call saying your house is there, and she's like, "No, I'm standing at the bottom of your, the stairs going up to the house. There is nothing here."
According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 5 people that experienced a natural disaster in the previous 10 years had experienced mental health struggles such as anxiety, depression, or PTSD.
It's had an enormous impact on my mental capabilities. It's had an enormous impact on my memory. Like, I don't have a lot of memory pre-fires. So for me, my childhood, it's like my childhood memories have gone.
Experts believe we should be doing more to support survivors of natural disasters long term.
I believe personally, my own opinion, and from working with a lot of responders and survivors of disaster, is we need to actually speak and engage with the local community that's affected and ask them what they need.
Georgina Carroll for RMIT Newsline.
Australia is the 4th highest producer of food waste in the world, and reporter Ethan Dean recently looked into a Melbourne-based startup that uses insects to help solve this emerging crisis.
Every year, Australians produce over 6.7 million tonnes of food waste, nearly half of which is still edible. This food waste is then dumped into landfill, where it produces harmful and potent greenhouse gases. Melbourne-based startup Bardee has created an unusual solution to this growing problem. Their facility in Sunshine North currently processes 10 tonnes of that food waste a day. It's used to feed millions of insects that Bardee then turn into sustainable agricultural products. This black soldier fly larvae is used by Bardee to create an alternative to traditional pet foods, livestock feeds, fertilisers, and someday, human food.
We believe we're processing 0.03% of Melbourne's food waste. So the immediate next step for us is to increase the food waste we can accept just in Melbourne, and then very quickly take that and repeat the technology in other cities around Australia and across the world.
Bardee recently showcased their technology at Melbourne Knowledge Week, alongside the Industry Superannuation Property Trust, which donates food waste from their Melbourne properties to Bardee's facility.
What they've been able to do is give us a pathway for us to be able to solve a problem. So waste traditionally is considered a problem, and they've given us an opportunity to think about waste as a resource.
As sales of their products and investment in their technology continues, Bardee hopes to become a global force in the fight against climate change.
Ultimately, there's 10,000 cities on the globe today, and we think there could be a Bardee facility in every single city, taking the waste from the city and upcycling it back into sustainable ingredients and agricultural inputs. And that's how we start to achieve a circular economy, and we need to do it quickly.
This is Ethan Dean, reporting for Newsline.
What did you think of that package?
Yeah, certainly one way of dealing with climate change. We'll be heading to a short break now, but stick with us. We'll be back soon.
welcome back to Newsline. In an important step towards establishing rights for workers in the food delivery gig economy, the app DoorDash has become the first company of its kind to sign a deal with an Australian union. Liam McNally reports.
The Transport Workers Union has recently signed an agreement with food delivery app DoorDash. The deal follows concerns the industry has become rife with stories of worker mistreatment, such as Ricardo's, who believes she was unfairly dismissed by DoorDash in the same week that the deal was signed.
On Monday morning, I couldn't log in and I thought, oh, what is it? So I called them and they were saying, check your emails, your account is deactivated, and was saying, why?
Ricardo believes she was reported to DoorDash after she gave a referral code to someone from a delivery drivers group on Facebook. The referral code awards the current and new driver certain bonuses. After the new driver signed up, they allegedly attempted to blackmail Ricardo into giving them her bonus too.
So it's very clear in the messages that he blackmailed me. He got really abusive in his language. I still don't know what he told them, but it was enough for DoorDash to deactivate my account.
Ricardo says her last paycheck was also frozen by DoorDash and that she has been through a repetitive, unsuccessful appeal process.
I realized I have no rights, not even a right of information. So they just can cut you off.
Jack Boutros of the Transport Workers Union hopes that the deal is a step towards establishing industry-wide regulation for the 70,000 delivery drivers currently working in Australia.
Look, the deal with DoorDash is really, for me, it's the most important thing is that a company is finally standing up and saying there are issues here, there needs to be improvement, and we need a broad system of regulation to achieve those improvements across the industry.
Ricardo has said she is in the early stages of seeking support for her case from the TWU. Liam McNally, RMIT News.
How good's Liam's shirt?
Good shirt.
Good shirt.
Joining us live in the studio is Bridget Novak with international news.
Shanghai's 6-week lockdown was lifted at midnight last night, effectively freeing the city's 25 million residents. This comes with a sense of global relief as the lockdown inhibited the city's manufacturing and export economy, resulting in disrupting in international trade. The population is now permitted to return to work and use public transport, although capacity limits, reopening delays, mask mandates and testing precautions are in effect. Across the globe, some sad news. The former Princess of Qatar, Karsha Galliano, has been found dead after a suspected drug overdose in her home in Marbella, Spain. The 45-year-old is survived by her 3 children, of which she was in a 15-year custody battle over with her ex-husband, Abdelaziz bin Khalifa Al Thani, a member of the royal family of Qatar. The custody battle brought forth sexual assault allegations on account of her ex-husband, although the case was postponed pending a psychological evaluation of Galliano. To the state of Oaxaca in Mexico, Hurricane Agatha is the strongest on record to have hit the country. The Category 2 hurricane crashed into the state on Monday afternoon, causing significant damage to the state's infrastructure. Winds are recorded to have reached almost 170 kilometres per hour. The hurricane quickly lost power as it moved inland yesterday afternoon, although the threat of flooding to Mexico's southern states remains. Agatha was the 3rd hurricane to hit Mexico during the month of May. To Egypt, 2,500-year-old artefacts have been discovered in Saqqara. Included were hundreds of coffins and bronze statues of ancient Egyptian deities. Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities said the artefacts are dated to the late period at around 500 BC. Mummies were discovered within the 250 uncovered coffins, along with amulets and wooden boxes, all intact. The coffins will be transferred for display at the Grand Egyptian Museum, due to open later this year.
And is the excavation still going?
Yes, it is. Egyptologist Sahawi Hawass said digging work will continue as they're hoping to discover a burial chamber.
And is this the first time this area has been discovered?
No, excavation at Saqqara has taken place over a matter of years. In fact, in 2018, they discovered the tomb of a royal priest, and in 2019, hundreds of mummified animals were discovered. That's it for international news. Back to you, Patty.
2-level crossings are set to go in Caulfield, but some locals aren't all aboard with the state government's redevelopment plans. Glen Ira councillors and environmental advocates are facing off against a proposal to cut down native trees. Lachlan Patrick reports.
The level crossing removal project has started work in Caulfield, part of a $4 billion investment into the train network's Frankston line.
The LXRP says this project will reduce congestion along Neerim Road, long-standing issues in this community that residents welcome fixes for.
We have too many cars, we have too much anxiety, too much noise. It drives you to want to leave.
The works also address safety issues. Newsline can exclusively reveal there's been a dozen near misses at Neerim and Glen Huntly Road since 2016, but the crossings aren't all the LXRP plans to remove.
The state government plans to install a shared-use bike and pedestrian path along Queen's Avenue, but those plans mean hundreds of trees are set to face the chainsaw.
They provide a canopy, their habitat for wildlife, and Glen Ira has the lowest canopy of local government areas.
To be taking out trees is just absurd and is counterintuitive.
Now, residents have taken their fight to City Hall, submitting a petition with 289 signatures. Council have noted it, and they say they're on board.
Those trees don't have to be removed. They just don't have to be removed. And if their engineers can't design it that way, then they need to find new engineers that can.
But the government says a design that can comes at a cost.
The LXRP believe that's about a $10 million adjustment. We're happy to live with that, as long as the government's paying.
No, I've been told that $10 million isn't much money. Well, it is for me.
1.2 million per 100 metres. It's absolutely a ridiculous sum of money.
And not worth it to passionate cyclist Sue, still biking days before her hip replacement surgery.
I can cycle 50 kilometres, but I can't walk 5 metres. Cycling is the best thing ever. Shared user paths are the most dangerous things for cyclists.
Should they limit that to one function, it will be safer, but they'll also need less land and they'll be able to preserve the trees.
But for now, a stay of execution. The LXRP says no trees will be chopped until there's been further community consultation. Lachlan Patrick, Newsline.
Hello, I'm Tom Monahan. On Friday, NASA announced that their new Webb telescope, which is the most powerful telescope launched into space, will be studying super-Earths. Tonight, I'm joined by a Scientia lecturer at the University of New South Wales to discuss this development. Thanks for joining us tonight, Ben. You there, Ben?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, great.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so Ben, what does this Webb telescope do different to the Hubble telescope?
So Hubble was a great facility for us, but it's almost 30 years old. And when it was launched, we didn't know anything about any exoplanets. And so the telescope is 7 times the size of Hubble, so it's much more sensitive. It has a whole generation new, more sensitive instruments that have never been used before. So it's really a big step forward in our ability to measure the atmospheres of exoplanets.
And so, yeah, NASA announced on Friday that the Webb telescope will be used to look and study 2 super-Earths. What exactly is a super-Earth?
Yeah, so a super-Earth is an astronomer's term for a planet that's rocky like the Earth, but bigger than the Earth. So we think the planets that are up to about 1.5 times the size of the Earth look a lot like us. They're rocky, perhaps have oceans and things like that. And those are super-Earths.
And so is NASA trying to use the Webb telescope to find a planet B then with these super-Earths?
No, we're trying to use Webb to understand the way that planetary systems form and evolve, but there's really not a substitute in the way we could imagine traveling to another system anywhere nearby in our future. The distances are just too far away.
And so why do we need to look at these super-Earths then if they're so far away? What answers are they going to find us?
Yeah, so they're going to tell us a lot about the way that planetary systems form. We know that our solar system all formed out of the same cloud 5 billion years ago, but we don't know how that changes as you look at other stars that formed in different environments and the planets that formed around them. And so these super-Earths are really going to tell us how planets form, to give us clues about what other habitable planets might look like, and not for us to go there, but to really understand the conditions that are needed for life to form in other places.
Yeah, and so the Webb telescope also has the ability to read chemical signatures. Does this mean that the telescope could also tell us if there is life outside of Earth?
Absolutely. So one of the goals of Webb is to look at the atmospheres of exoplanets and really understand what planets might have water in their atmosphere, or methane, or other what we call biosignatures, signs of life. Webb will do a lot of that for especially planets around stars smaller than the sun. And it'll really set the stage for the next generation of telescopes to really do it for Earth-like planets around sun-like stars.
Now, one of the also brilliant things about this telescope is that it can potentially look back in time. How exactly is it going to do that?
Yeah, so this is a thing that we say, because the speed of light is constant, right? When I'm looking at you, I'm seeing you a tiny bit, what you look like fractions of a second ago. The further away things are, the further back we're seeing the light emitted from it. And so when we look at very, very distant galaxies, we're seeing the way they looked 10 billion, 12 billion years ago, when the universe was very young. And so to understand the way the galaxies evolve, we look at galaxies right nearby and then ones very far away and see how they change in time, to understand how the Milky Way would have changed in time as well.
So then how far back can it look then? Can it look all the way back to the Big Bang?
Just about. Webb is going to look at some of the first galaxies, things that probably formed within the first 10% of the age of the universe, really, really as far back as we can go to when the first seeds of the very first generation of stars in the universe were formed. It's going to be about as far back as we can go.
Great. Well, thanks very much for your time tonight, Ben. We're going to take a short break now. Up next, our reporter Brigitte Hare will be looking at the impact of the proposed North East link.
Welcome back to Newsline. The North East link could be the missing piece in Melbourne's freeway network. However, the construction of the road may have a negative impact on the region's environment. Reporter Brigitte Hare spoke to local group leaders. Here's what she found out.
I'm in Greensborough near the Simpson Army Barracks in front of some bushland that will be cleared for the North East Link road extension. Conservation groups are concerned as this is home to 2 endangered plants.
The Simpson Army Barracks is a habitat that allows endangered plants, the madderflax lily and the studley gum, to flourish. This habitat will be destroyed by the North East Link road.
They're very rare, the matted flax lilies, and most people overlook them. There's not many of them. There's a couple of thousand of them. It's a very good habitat that's been clearly established, and you're trading that for an offset site replanting somewhere else, which may or may not work. An offset should be an absolute last resort. You know, if you're going to have a big impact on an endangered species, you should really be adjusting the project or, you know, redesigning it.
The North East Link isn't just impacting the environment, but also the people in the area. While local groups have tried to liaison in the road planning process, they haven't felt heard.
Where NELP just talk at you and give you the information that they want, and don't really listen to concerns, don't change their ideas, don't acknowledge that there's any problems. And it's like a tick the box exercise where they say, oh, we've consulted, but really they haven't. Like, I hate the project and I wish it would stop, but I know it's going to happen, so we have to have the best possible project.
This has been Brigida Hare reporting for RMIT Newsline.
The Andrews government is proposing a bill to ban anti-logging protests, and our reporter Rebecca Broadhead has more.
Rebecca, are you there? Hello.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you going? You keeping warm?
Yes, I'm very cozy here in front of Parliament House.
Very good. Tell us what the bill is, first of all.
Yeah, so the Victorian government introduced the 2022 Sustainable Forests Timber Amendment and the Timber Harvesting Safety Zones Bill last week, which would see protesters face fines of up to $21,000 and up to 12 months in jail. So protesters will be prohibited from also entering timber harvesting zones and from blocking workers from their machinery. Ironically, the bill came in at the same time that the Victorian government announced the opening of 3 new national parks, which cost $4 million. So they obviously disapprove of bold protests, but they can sympathise with the message.
Right, okay.
So, Beck, how's the government actually justifying this proposed law?
Yeah, so people from inside Parliament, such as the former Minister for Agriculture, Mary Ann Thomas, said that protests are becoming more and more dangerous, which is why this legislation will support workers to get on with their job with minimal disruption to the industry. And there have also been instances of protesters chaining themselves to machinery, blocking machinery as well, and yeah, getting into dangerous situations.
Wow. So what have been reactions from, MPs, state MPs from within the Parliament?
Yeah, so for example, Victoria Greens Senator Lydia Thorpe said that today she's willing to risk her parliamentary position to continue protesting against native logging. She's got a rich history of doing her own protests in her lands. And she also said there's no jurisdiction for any of these laws to be passed anyway because there's no treaty. And yeah, many people have said there's no proof given that there's a risk to employee security and that current fines and penalties don't already work.
Right, and I suppose, bit broad question, but is the draft bill to deny this sort of, I suppose, right to protest actually constitutional? Is there a discussion around that?
There definitely is. This is the most heated part. So according to Kieran Pender, the senior lawyer from the Human Rights Law Centre, the draft law is unnecessary and undemocratic, and that any law that threatens the fundamental democratic right to protest must be necessary, proportionate, and also subject to sufficient safeguards and oversight. So he said that it is unconstitutional and that the proposed law does not meet these criteria.
Very good, Rebecca. Thank you very much. Thank you for being our second last live cross of all of Newsline as well. I hope you stay warm. We are heading to a short break now, but stay tuned to look inside Melbourne's theatre industry.
The number of people planning to attend live performances increased by 9% from November 2021 to March 2022, according to the Australian Council of the Arts. It's been 2 years now since the start of the pandemic. Toy Nguyen reports on the health of the arts and theatre industry.
Abigail Bannister-Jones just had her first show after dealing with financial resources.
As an independent artist, there are some resources, you can apply for grants and that kind of stuff, but it is very taxing.
As excited as she is going into the industry, Abigail sees there are needs to be met.
I just sort of see the government's attitude to the artistic and entertainment sector as very sidelining, and the budget has been on a steady decline since the 80s.
Her opinion was not of the odds.
There have been some kind of quick response and kind of unusual financial opportunities for independent artists and organisations as a result of COVID.
But to help the industry thrive requires a big and collective investment.
The last 2 years of lockdown and restrictions, we have talked about how to keep the theatre industry going. Now is the time to ask, what can we do to strengthen it?
If artists were given a salary, then they wouldn't be in the constant run of needing to apply for grants, getting grants, waiting for outcomes, negotiating.
Sophie Loughran, a performing artist from Melbourne, created a YouTube show using JobKeeper grant. But audience is the most significant support she expects.
Just hoping that the audiences will come out and support live arts, live music again.
If you can get people into the theatres, then shows can break even or make money, which means they can do another show. But it's also the experience of the people on stage.
Stage Centre aims to fill in the gap between theatre makers and audience through promoting. Despite the trials, the industry is still recovering.
Everybody was just really keen to support the little seed of work that I had.
The theatres are all reopened and lots of audiences coming back.
Toy Nguyen, RMIT Newsline.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Roundup. I'm Olivia Sanders.
And I'm Tess McCracken.
Here on the Roundup, we'll be covering some of the biggest stories across tech, arts and politics.
But first, let's take a look at today's headlines around the globe.
The ABC is reporting on Anthony Albanese's cabinet as the new government is sworn in today. Women will fill a record 10 of the 23 cabinet positions. History-making appointments include Linda Burney as the first female Indigenous person as Indigenous Affairs Minister and Anne Ali as the first Muslim minister on the front bench.
Al Jazeera reports on fatal torrential rain in northeast Brazil as the death toll reaches 100. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro pledged to ease the pain of those impacted by the floods. 14 people remain missing.
The Guardian is covering US President Joe Biden's gun control talks with the New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. The talks come in the wake of the Uvalde school shooting in Texas last week. Biden praised Ardern's response to the 2019 Christchurch mosque massacre, in which 51 people were killed. Ardern introduced a ban of most semi-automatic weapons in New Zealand.
Russian forces now control most of Severodonetsk, one of the last Ukrainian-held areas of eastern Luhansk region. This comes just a day after 27 countries agreed to end seaborne deliveries of Russian oil. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky calls the partial embargo an important step in isolating Moscow economically.
The Japan Times reports the country is upping its daily traveller intake to 20,000 as COVID restrictions continue to ease. People entering the country are no longer required to isolate or test for COVID-19. But the new rules only apply to 98 countries with the lowest risk of infection, including Australia. And that's it for today's Front Page World News. Let's turn to the latest news in tech, the arts and political satire.
We'll start with the tech sector. We're heading to America, where Elon Musk's buyout of Twitter has hit a roadblock. The billionaire tech mogul has been embroiled in a legal case that threatens to disrupt the deal. Chloe Nash is here with us for the story. What's going on with this, Chloe?
Yeah, so Twitter shareholders are suing Elon Musk, alleging that he manipulated the Twitter share price for personal benefits. By this point, he'd already brought 5% of 5% of Twitter by March 14, and investors alleged that his failure to disclose this information saved Musk $150 million US. In Northern California Fed District Court, shareholders argue Musk drove down prices to get a better deal.
It's a really serious accusation Musk is facing. Just how will this impact him?
So Tesla shares are majorly down since the Twitter buy announcement, which has most of Musk's value. Investors say that this drop will put Musk's purchasing power in major peril.
It'll be really interesting to see how that unfolds. Now, there's another story in Texas which has continued to unfold overnight. Tell us more about that, Chloe.
So the law passed last year and prohibits social media from banning users based on views. The Texas Governor Greg Abbott spoke about the law in March this year.
The remedy for bad speech is more speech, not enforced silence. And sadly, we have a handful of people in America today who want to control the town square.
Now the US Supreme Court has blocked the law that prohibits media companies like Twitter and Facebook to moderate users based on their political views. This law would have allowed Texans and the state of Texas to sue these companies if they were censored.
It sounds like this was a bit of an 11th hour intervention. What does this mean for social media companies?
So the emergency request from tech brands to block law, granted last night, is being appealed in court. These companies have argued that this law violates their First Amendment rights to control what is shared on their platforms.
Thanks, Chloe. Now let's take a look at what's happening in the arts. The Rising Arts Festival kicks off in Melbourne today after years of interruptions due to COVID. Arts reporter Ruby Littler has all the details on the 12-day arts extravaganza.
Yeah, the Rising Arts Festival has been heavily anticipated. It's been 3 years in the making. It nearly got off the ground last year, but then Melbourne went into lockdown. Melburnians will be able to see events across the city at bars, gardens and museums.
Well, I'm sure we're all looking forward to getting out after such a long wait. So what inspired the festival and who are the masterminds behind it all?
So Hannah Fox and Gideon O'Barsnick are the co-artistic directors of this festival. The program's going to be stacked with different visual artists, installations, performances and food events. Rising will have 133 events in total and there are going to be over 750 Melbourne artist features.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot on the program. What are you keeping an eye out for?
Yeah, I'm definitely watching out for Golden Square Car Park. It's going to be transformed into a 3-storey art installation event, and then also the Wild at Sydney Myer Music Bowl. There are going to be large inflatable mythical creatures all across the bowl, and then there will also be an ice skating rink which will have a choir playing 80s and 90s pop tunes.
Awesome, that's one way to kick off winter. On to our next story. The St Kilda Festival is wrapping up this weekend. The 9-day film festival has been a staple of the Melbourne art scene for years, so tell us more about it, Ruby.
Yeah, well, I reckon in this kind of weather, I'm going to struggle to leave Netflix, but I reckon I should head down because it's the last weekend, and the St Kilda Film Festival is an Academy Award-winning qualifying event, and it showcases work from the finalists of Australia's top short film competitions.
I didn't realise Melbourne hosted Oscar qualifying events. What can we expect to see from them?
Yeah, so because they're short films, they're going to be divided into showcases. So featuring 6 films, there'll be the Australian Drama Showcase with films from Britea Haag and Sienna Pritty, and I'm keeping an eye out for the Shifting the Gaze Women in Film Showcase, which will have films from Jessica Lawton and Louise Martiri.
Beautiful. Well, I know what I'll be doing this weekend. Thanks, Ruby.
Thank you.
Now let's take a look at today's political satire. YouTube channel Friendly Geordies has posted a video about new Liberal leader Peter Dutton. The video continues jokes about Mr Dutton's resemblance to fictional villain Voldemort from the Harry Potter book series. Let's take a look.
Hey Dutton, crap here. I'm sorry Tanya out just being Voldemort. Your time will come, my lord. Your time will come. Our time will come.
Adam and Jeffrey is with us to explain more.
So the actor is Jamie Waylett. He plays one of the followers of Voldemort in the movie series. And the comparison of Mr. Dutton to the Voldemort has been a few years old now. Mr. Dutton says while he does not like the representation, he acknowledges it comes with his line of work.
The clip uses video service Cameo, which launched in 2017. The platform generally is used for birthday message, so this isn't really a typical use for it, is it?
No, it's not. So the platform allows a user to create a specialised message for somebody else. Friendly Geordies and his team are subverting the platform to create these tongue-in-cheek attacks on political leaders, and it's actually part of a series that was released for the federal election.
Next up is political cartoonist Kathy Wilcox. Her cartoon titled Coming Out of the Dark was published today in the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Idwin?
Sure. This is a reference to the recent federal outcome, and the figure represents Australia's shift away from coal to more renewable energy sectors, such as the sun and solar power. The new government has the opportunity for more ambitious climate change policy with a Labor net zero commitment and increased Teal and Greens candidates.
And lastly, we have UK cartoonist Edith Pritchett with their weekly wrap-up in Venn diagrams. Idwin, what's going on here?
Yeah, this is published in The Guardian every Monday, synopsising, the top 3 stories. So we have delays in the UK passport office. We have also reference to the UK Mars rover, which was launched last year, but has gone a bit missing in action at the moment.
The last panel addresses UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He was in the news last week for a report showing his government had breached UK lockdown laws. What is the reference to a game of darts?
The author's poking fun, so an average punter at a game of darts misses the mark a lot. And that's what they're saying here. They're referencing Boris Johnson's dwindling political popularity and the fact that he might be even facing a no confidence vote later this week as to his leadership.
Thanks, Idwin. That's our roundup for today. Thanks to our other reporters, Chloe Nash on tech and Ruby Littler on arts. For the roundup, I'm Olivia Sanders.
And I'm Tess McCracken. We're going to take a short break now. Then we'll be back with a live cross to Queen Victoria Market. See you then.
Welcome back. We're crossing live now to Kendra at Queen Victoria Market. Kendra, are you there?
Hey, yes I am. So we are here, but the weather has just absolutely gotten us, so we are taking cover at the moment. But we are here at the Queen Victoria Winter Night Market, which is fantastic. They're setting everything up. It's running from tonight is the opening night, and it's running all the way to the 31st. So Jackie, Paddy, you've got plenty of time to get on down here and enjoy the wonderful lights, the food stores, and everything that it has to offer.
We do, we do.
I might give it a miss tonight if it's a bit wet. But what can people expect from the night market, Kendra?
Well, Paddy, you can expect 35 food traders with their awesome cuisines that will be set up around the market. They haven't started cooking yet, which I'm very upset about because I definitely wanted something to get to eat for this live cross, but they will be setting up a little bit later today.
Did you see any of the food that they've got yet? Anything? Did you smell anything?
I've seen a lot of donuts, so that's what will be my first question. I don't know what else, but there's a lot of barbecuing going on. So yeah, you can really feel the atmosphere. They're coming out of their 3-year hibernation, so it is fantastic to see.
That is fantastic.
So how much am I paying for half a dozen donuts, roughly? Like, what can you tell me in that regard?
I mean, I haven't actually checked the price specifically because I would have been late to this live cross, but it looks like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, yeah. And are they looking like they're rugged up? Are they rugged up themselves?
Everyone is rugged up. Everyone is in lots of clothes and full like winter attire, more than myself right now. But yeah, everyone is all warmed up, getting ready for this market.
Good. And heaters for the patrons there too?
I haven't actually seen any heaters, but Jackie, there is some live performers that will be doing some fire twirling later on. So if you count that as a heater, but if you really want to get warmed up and into the spirit of the market, you can participate in the live Guru Silent Disco, which you can dance your way through the sheds and take part. So guys, when you're getting off air, definitely come down, put your headphones in, some classic 70s and 80s hits.
Yeah, beautiful. Don't go near the fire twirler when you're doing the silent disco, I think.
Any cost to enter the silent disco, Kendra, or just rock up?
There is no cost, but there is only one condition, is that you come hungry and ready for a good time.
Fantastic.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Kendra. We hope you stay warm. We might see you down there, or we might see you back in the studio.
Thanks, Kendra. Recently, Ballarat held an annual festival exploring the regional city's history. And the festival took place over the last week of May and welcomed locals and visitors to partake in a few activities with COVID-friendly options available. Bridget Novak has the story.
Ballarat is known to many as a historic Australian city, and here at the annual Heritage Festival, visitors and locals can revisit the past. The festival is spread out over 9 days and includes many attractions such as exhibitions and workshops held at various locations throughout the city.
I'm from Carlton, so stopped for the day. Really enjoyed the monochrome exhibition and seeing Cape Road's mirror piece.
The festival has continued in previous years despite COVID-19. In fact, last year's festival was awarded top honours in the Victorian Tourism Awards Events and Festivals category. A self-guided digital tour is available on the festival's website, showcasing some of Ballarat's iconic locations. The website also offers day-by-day programs, allowing visitors and locals to travel to attractions dotted around the town. This year, they've introduced the Food Edit, a range of heritage-inspired eat and drink experiences.
We're doing a sourdough masterclass, so our head baker and owner Josh Chapman, he's doing a class for 15 people on Thursday afternoon to learn how to make sourdough.
The festival has allowed local businesses to thrive off of the event.
So Heritage Weekend started last weekend and we saw an influx of customers and definitely I think an influx of out-of-town customers.
The festival will end in late May, although it can be expected to return next year. Bridget Novak for RMIT Newsline.
We're coming right up to the end of the show now, and it's time to take a look at sport news with reporter Benjamin Galotta.
Rafael Nadal has won his quarterfinal match against rival and top-ranking tennis player Novak Djokovic 3-1 at the French Open. The match, which lasted 4 hours, marked the 59th time the world champions have faced each other on the court, the most of any two male professional players since the Open era began in 1968. Nadal will go on to face Germany's Alexander Zverev in the semi-finals on Friday. Australian WNBA player Liz Cambridge has denied accusations she hurled racist insults at the Nigerian national basketball team during a pre-Olympic warm-up game last year. Video footage has emerged showing the Cambridge elbowing an opponent in the neck, leaving a gash. The closed-door scrimmage, which was cut short after a fight broke out, occurred 7 hours prior to Cambridge stepping down from the Opals before the team was set to play in Tokyo for the Summer Olympic Games, citing mental health reasons. The allegations of racism, which were made by multiple players of the Nigerian team, have been backed up by the Opals captain, Jenny O'Hea. Owner of the Nottingham Forest Football Club, Evangelos Marinakis, is under scrutiny following the team's promotion to the Premier League. The Greek billionaire was deemed fit to purchase the club in 2017 by the EFL, despite investigations into match fixing and drug trafficking by Greek authorities and the UEFA. If Marinakis is found unfit to own the club, the owners test allows for disqualified owners to divest their stake in the club so that it will retain the promotion. Back to you, Paddy.
Sporting clubs can be off limits to some members of the community, but walking versions of sports, like netball, offer participation for all members. Freya O'Donnell reports.
If you've been participating recreationally and don't intend to become a professional, team sports tend to end after high school. As a young person, team sports is said to be monumentally beneficial for social development, but this benefit doesn't stop at 17. Walking sports such as walking football, netball or basketball are all low impact and social ways to improve the levels of physical activity for the inactive, including those recovering from injury, those with intellectual and physical disabilities, as well as those who may believe they're too old to be playing sports.
My favourite part about walking netball is actually being able to get back into the game again. It's been 20 plus years since I actually played competitive netball.
The rules, of course, have been modified, with rule number 1 being no running. Most of the rules surround the shared principles of playing for enjoyment and respecting each other.
And it's just a great way to enjoy netball when you're older.
Walking netball, for example, modify the rules to suit the unique players. Stepping is allowed, but only 1 to 2 steps before passing. You can hold the ball for 4 rather than 3 seconds, and quarters are shortened with longer breaks.
So it's a real social event on people's calendars, and also fitness is such an important thing in people's lives, and no matter what age you are, you should always continue with your fitness.
Your age or physical ability shouldn't control your potential to participate in group sports.
Anyone can do it, and it's so much fun, and it's a lot harder than you think.
This has been Freya O'Donnell from RMIT Newsline. Keep on walking.
Now to the weather from Melbourne and around the country with Raya Malasari.
Well, it's the first day of winter, and for today's weather forecast in Melbourne, it's the coldest day with the showers this morning. Today's a top of 12 degrees and it will not get much warmer. Now we'll take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast for Australia's capital cities. 10% chance of rain in Melbourne, reaching 13 degrees. The nation capital, Canberra, is looking partly cloudy with a morning frost and a top of 12. In Sydney, partly cloudy, reaching 18 degrees. Windy but mostly sunny in Brisbane with a top of 19. Mostly sunny in Darwin, reaching 32 degrees tomorrow. A shower or 2 in Perth with a top of 20. Possible showers in Adelaide with a top of 15 degrees. Partly cloudy in Hobart and a top of 12. Back in Melbourne, looking into the week ahead, showers increasing over the weekend. More cold days and rain coming in for the start of the week. Monday, an 80% chance of rain and a top of 11 and 90% chance of rain on Tuesday with maximum temperature of 12. A top of 11 degrees on Wednesday with showers to continue over the week. Thursday, a chance of rain with a top of 11 degrees. Friday, another cold, rainy day with a top of 12 degrees. So starting the first day of winter, it's not looking great. We are going to see an increase with heavy rains in the upcoming days. Remember to dress warm and stay warm this winter. That's all for your Newsline weather. I'm Miriam Liasari. Back to you, Jackie and Paddy.
Thank you, Rayam. So that concludes Newsline for the week. First, we'd like to say thank you to all the other journalists who are behind the scenes in the background, all the tech guys. It's not just us here. Yep. There's heaps of other people that are on every day, all sitting down there, looking over at us, kind of, not really. Who else would we like to thank?
Alex Wake,
Alex
sort of
Wake,
extraordinaire,
coordinator,
looked after
Channel
us.
31. We would love to thank Channel 31 too.
Everyone watching on at home, hello, how you going? Good, great.
Stay warm.
Stay warm, etc. Enjoy the footy this weekend.
Enjoy the footy.
So on and so forth.
So on and so forth. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jacqueline Stanley.
I'm Paddy Grinley. Enjoy your weekend, folks. Enjoy your evening. Wednesday, sorry.